What the fuck? The finale of Season 2 of House of the Dragon was an absolute mess, a complete disaster of an episode and an insult to book fans and show fans alike. We've spent 2 whole years waiting for this season, anticipating how it would turn out, and in the end, we got a series of filler episodes and a finale that is just as nonsensical as it is underwhelming. Instead of ending on the fall of King's Landing or the Battle of the Gullet, the show ends unremarkably with a mud wrestling match, Daemon becoming a green seer, Otto in a random prison cell, and another Scooby-Doo-like mission where Alicent sneaks into Dragonstone and basically betrays her whole faction. What the fuck? I've said this so many times, but I think that this episode just made it even clearer. Alicent's character is completely ruined. There's absolutely no turning back from here. In a single scene, she basically tells Rhaenyra all of Aemon's plans, agrees to her taking her son's throne, his birthright, betrays Sir Criston Cole and Gwaine, her brother, and consents to Rhaenyra killing Aegon, Aemond, and Daeron, the same son that she was gushing about a few episodes ago. It's such a stupid change from the source material because it means that Alicent doesn't care if her children live or die, which was literally her whole motivation for even starting the war in the book. In Fire and Blood, she literally says, "Nor will they spare my children. Aegon and his brothers are the king's true-born sons, with a better claim to the Iron Throne than her brood of bastards. Daemon will find some pretext to put them all to death, even HELAENA and her little ones. One of those strongs put out Aemon's eye. Never forget, he was a boy, aye, but the boy is the father to the man, and bastards are monstrous by nature." Notice how Alicent is not only afraid that Rhaenyra plans on seating her bastards on the Iron Throne, but she is also terrified of what she'll do to her children if she actually does. Regardless of what they've done, Alicent loves her children, and she wants to protect them. It's her sole motivation for wanting to fight so hard in the first place. She is even concerned about her grandchildren, something that her show counterpart doesn't even give a thought to. This Alicent doesn't even care about Jaehaera, Aegon's daughter, because what about her? Rhaenyra will have to kill her too if she takes the Iron Throne, so it doesn't make sense that Alicent would be so short-sighted as to not even think of that. But I guess the character can only be as far-seeing and clever as the person who writes them. I don't think that Ryan and Sarah even understand that without Alicent's motivation to protect her children, there is no Dance of the Dragons. That is why Alicent fights so hard in the first place, and the same can go with Rhaenyra. That's why the book is called The Princess and the Queen, because both women are trying to protect their children and further their bloodlines. They are supposed to be a family, but their ambitions drive them apart, putting their lives in danger as well as those of their children. That is the tragic element of the story, the reason why the narrative culminates in war and the utter destruction of this house. It is why the dragons dance and die by the end, why everyone is doomed and Alicent ends up mad. But without that motivation, then what's the point of the story? It's a genuine mystery to me how they could miss the glaringly obvious significance of this character to the narrative. But for Ryan and Sarah, the true enemy is the patriarchy. And it doesn't matter if Alicent allows for her sons to die if it means that a woman can finally sit on the Iron Throne. It's complete nonsense. And that's not even the most infuriating part of the conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra. The most infuriating part is the fact that this comes at the expense of Alicent's individuality and personhood, her feelings, desires, fears, and even experiences. For example, Rhaenyra stands across from Alicent and basically tells her that she has never sacrificed anything in her life.
Still, you imagine you can have all you want without paying too high a price. Will you shrink from what you set out to do, or will you see it through and make your sacrifice?
But Alicent has sacrificed more than anyone in the story. She was the one who was raped by her father, and she put up with it in order to give him sons. Sons that he didn't even care for once he had them. Alicent was a child, and yet she sacrificed her own happiness and dignity in order to maintain the stability of the realm. This whole conversation literally made me mad. Because what has Rhaenyra sacrificed? Alicent has literally been making sacrifices for years, but Rhaenyra has always gotten what she wanted. In every situation, Alicent has had to suck it up and play ball, but Rhaenyra has always bent the rules, lied, and even gotten people killed because she lied. She says that Alicent wears a cloak of righteousness, but how can she judge when she's never sacrificed anything in her life? These conversations between them are always an opportunity for the writers to either humiliate, degrade, diminish, or mock Alicent, making her look like a fool. Because why is Alicent never allowed to express her side of the story? How she has been wronged and hurt by the people around her. Whoever wrote the script clearly hates Alicent. That's the only thing that makes sense when you analyze these scenes. Ryan and Sora hate Alicent in their bones. They can't stand her and women like her. Women that, from their viewpoint, support the patriarchy. They hate women like that, and since they view Alicent as an allegory for women like that, they can never truly write the story with consideration to her viewpoint. Therefore, Alicent's decisions will never make sense, nor will she ever have agency in the story, because the writers do not even see her as an independent character with goals or motivations, fears and anxieties, determination or strength of character. They only see her as a victim of a patriarchy, powerless, ambitionless, pathetic, and naive. She serves no purpose in the story, nor will she ever serve one in the future, because the writers do not like this character, and they use the narrative to punish her for supporting her son's claim, for perpetuating the evil and misogynistic patriarchy of Westeros, regardless of her reasons. The fact that she committed the sin of supporting the patriarchy in the first place is exactly why they hate her and her character. In fact, the writers hate all the green characters because in the same episode, they also tried to make a joke out of Aegon losing his dick. They present this information in such an unserious way that it's obvious that they are trying to make a joke out of it. Because if they were really trying to present it from Aegon's perspective, then it wouldn't make sense for Aegon to not be saddened by this. Think about how traumatized Theon was after he was castrated and how he couldn't even talk about the experience without getting emotional. Aegon not only lost his but he also lost it because of his brother's betrayal. So why wouldn't that make him emotional? Regardless of how the writers feel about Aegon as a person, and regardless of what Aegon has done in his past, when they write the story from his perspective, they are supposed to put their personal feelings about him aside and show how he would truly react in this situation. They are supposed to remove themselves from the story and try to put themselves in Aegon's shoes so that they can explore the character's feelings and understand what he would be going through at this moment. Aegon has never had any affection from either of his parents. He only gets affection from prostitutes. But now, that experience is gone for him, and his brother is the one that is responsible for it. Aegon was the only one who accepted Aemond after Aemond killed Luke, and yet Aemond repaid him by trying to kill him and burn away his cock in the attempt. Aegon should be angry, sad, devastated, but the show presents his loss as a joke to the audience. Either the writers lack the skill to write his character properly, or they clearly hate the character and don't even bother exploring the facets of his humanity. The writers are either very lazy or very biased, and I can't tell which one is worse. That's why I'm not even excited for season 3, because I already know that they are gonna mess it up. They clearly don't understand these characters, and they don't understand the story, which is why things won't get better from here, as pessimistic as that may sound. Look at what they've done with HELAENA's character, for example. HELAENA doesn't even care about the death of her son. Her grief, which is such an important aspect of her character, has been completely removed from the story. It plays such an important role in future events, and yet it's completely non-existent to the narrative of Season 2. The writers just removed it.
I feel sad about Jaehaerys, but I ought not to, I think. People die all the time, especially babes.
Helena's grief over Jaehaerys and her guilt about what she did to Maelor is what leads to her death and Rhaenyra's unpopularity as a monarch. This, in turn, leads to the small folk rebelling and eventually killing the dragons. So yes, Helena's grief is an important aspect of her character, and omitting it is a mistake because it will make Rhaenyra's downfall unjustified. How am I supposed to be optimistic about the third season when the writers are changing the most fundamental aspects of these characters' personalities? I'm telling you now, it's only gonna get worse from here. In the upcoming seasons, there will be big battles with dragons in them, which people are going to cheer for. But remember that Game of Thrones' 6th and 7th seasons had the exact same thing. People cheered during the Battle of the Bastards, and people cheered for Daenerys during the Field of Fire. But many years later, when people look back on those episodes, they realize that they were nonsensical and they didn't really make much sense, regardless of how great the spectacle of it was and how cool it looked to actually watch it. That's because none of the spectacle means anything if the writing itself is bad. And the writing here for House of the Dragon is absolutely terrible, my guy. There's just too many things that don't make sense at all. For example, Rhaena finds Sheepstealer on the field after looking for her for several days, but this whole subplot is full of plot holes and raises too many questions. How could the Knights of the Vale not be able to find her when they've lived in this region longer than her and probably know it better than she does? Why would they risk her dying of starvation or dehydration when Lady Arryn was specifically tasked with taking care of her? It would be a stupid plan to risk her claiming a dragon because if she fails, she could face the wrath of Rhaenyra and possibly even Baela. Also, what the hell is that dragon, my guy? How is Sheepstealer so small and scrawny looking when he's supposed to be nearly as big as Vermithor? How is Rhaena even gonna tame this dragon when Nettles took weeks using sheep and positive reinforcement? Do the writers even care to explore that question, or will they just make her claim her for the sake of the plot? The episode is a mess that leaves too many questions for the audience. Daemon can now see visions of the future, and he even gets a glimpse of Season 8 of Game of Thrones. I don't even know why this vision is relevant in the first place because we all saw Season 8 and we all know what happens by the end. A Targaryen doesn't sit the Iron Throne. They don't even kill the Night King. It's actually the Starks who end up doing both of those things. I don't even understand the writers' insistence on reminding us of Game of Thrones when that show literally has the worst ending in television history. If anything, the writers should be working hard on making us forget about that ending instead of reminding us of it every chance that they get. But they won't do that because they don't know what to do with Daemon's character. Now, they're turning him into, what, Viserys? Is Daemon gonna be a dreamer now too? The last thing that I want to talk about that bothers me about this episode is TYLAND being in Essos. How did he even get there if the Velaryons have implemented a blockade? This blockade has literally been an issue for the whole season, but now TYLAND can just travel across the narrow sea with no problem. What route did he even take? And why haven't the Greens used it to smuggle food this whole time? In Fire and Blood, no one goes to Essos because there's literally a blockade in the narrow sea and a war ravishing the inlands. It's not safe to travel, so no one makes the journey. In the book, it's Otto who sends a letter to the Triarchy asking them for aid, and it's only later on that they answer it and break the blockade during the Battle of the Gullet. It's supposed to be a surprising and shocking moment for the Blacks, and it's supposed to be a display of Otto's foresight and patience as a ruler. No one believed that his letters were actually working, but it turns out that they actually were. But now, I don't even understand why the writers would change something like that, because it would have made much more sense than Thailand being in Essos during a blockade. And I don't even want to discuss the stupidity of this mud wrestling scene. Why was this scene even included in the show? The Triarchy would never dare try to humiliate a foreign dignitary like this, especially one who serves in the small council of the King of Westeros. The Targaryens have dragons, and they expect for their envoys to be treated with respect. So it just doesn't make sense that the Triarchy would try to humiliate Thailand in this way. Aegon the Conqueror literally burned all of House Dondarrion when his envoy's hands were chopped off and sent to him. Why would the Triarchy risk offending any Dragon Rider's envoy? The writers clearly don't take the story seriously. They don't really understand what the Dance of the Dragons is about, and so in their attempt to reinterpret it, they don't know whether to tell a serious story full of drama and tragedy, or one that is filled with comedy and jokes. That's why I'm pessimistic about Season 3. I don't think that the story will get any better. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section, and if you like this video, click the thumbs up button and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this video. Peace.